Welcome to Insights in Sound, where we talk to the people behind the scenes, behind the technology, and behind the music. People you may not know, but you should.
Our guest is bassist Eva Gardner. She's best known for her work with Pink, but she's also toured and recorded with artists like Cher, Gwen Stefani, Moby, and Mars Volta. Eva's the oldest daughter of Kim Gardner, bassist with the UK band The Creation, part of the 1960s British invasion. And she grew up around her father's famous friends, artists like Ron Wood, Eric Clapton, John Entwistle, and George Harrison. We spoke with Eva at her home in Southern California. Hope you enjoy it. So let's start with the easy stuff. I know, obviously, you grew up in a musical household, and Dad was a bass player, which is what set you off on this horrible path that you remain to this day.
The blessing and the curse. There was tons of music in the house in the way of musicians. My dad had a studio, so they were always, tinkering in there into the wee hours and beyond. There were some times when my sisters and I would be in our little uniforms, getting ready for school, on the way to school, getting into the car. The car was in the garage, and the studio door was right there. So Dad would hear the garage door go up, and the studio door would open up, and hey, girls, come in here. Just record some vocals real quick before your mom comes down. So we'd be in the studio, doing a quick take on vocals. Me and my sisters were probably 8 and 11, or and younger, and so we'd be in there recording these vocals on the way to school. Dad was still up doing his thing, and Mom would be like, Kim, the girls got to go to school. Come on, girls, get in the car. He's like, no, just one more take. So we were always around it.
Was your dad producing other people's stuff, or?
It was mostly him writing and recording with his friends. Him and Andy Johns produced my first demo with my first band. We recorded in that studio, and they had an old Akai 12-track with those weird, those tapes that looked like little VHS tapes.
Right.
Yeah, We recorded in there, me and my all-girl Catholic school buddies, all-girl band called Entropy. So we recorded down there, and it was, looking back, it was so adorable, It was just my dad and his best friend recording their 13-year-old, 14-year-old daughter's band stuff,
Entropy, that's such an 80s name. Did you have shoulder pads too?
We didn't have shoulder pads. We were a little bit past that time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was just always around us. And growing up at the Cat and Fiddle also, we had music there all the time.
Right, of course.
And Dad would sit in with the jazz band every Sunday.
Not only wasn't the music intimidating to you, but the technology wasn't really intimidating to you.
Not so much, just because, I grew up with a 4-track in the living room,
Right.
Even when I was a child. Before my dad had a studio space, before we lived in that house, the living room was the studio. Mm-hmm. And he had the reel-to-reel, a Crown, reel-to-reel 4-track.
Ooh.
And he had that, and we had a piano in there, and he had his upright bass, and his guitar, and his other basses, and so that was literally what I grew up around. As technology changed, he would get the new gear, and
of course.
And so, and in the '80s, it was the drum machines, and we had a new Roland keyboard, whatever came out at the time. So we used to love tinkering around on that and messing with the sound bank, and so yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was not only Dad's playroom, but ours as well. Me and my sister.
I know it's hard to say you knew what you wanted to do when you were a kid, but was there another consideration besides music?
I wanted to be an astronomer.
Now that's
at one point.
Cool. Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I remember in 3rd grade, we had in school, it was the career day, what do you want to be? And, I said I wanted to be an astronomer.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. And we had a telescope, my dad was super into space and all that, so we had a telescope in the house and grew up watching the planets and the stars and staring at the moon through the telescope, and
that's neat.
It was really fun.
Uh-huh. And then, of course, you got corrupted by the music business. And,
yeah, well, I realized how much math was involved with astronomy. It wasn't just peering through a telescope all the time.
Right.
So, but then I found music. eventually. And I mean, I always knew that I wanted to do music. And I remember being like a second grader and having a slumber party, and my little school friends were over, and we were hanging out in the studio, and I was like, I'm a bass player. And I didn't even really know what it meant, but I was announcing that back then.
Hey, if it was good enough for Dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I knew it's what I wanted to do, but I didn't actively pursue it until a little bit later.
So who were your role models when you wanted to be a bass player?
I was, I mean, obviously, like, my dad was my hero.
Of course.
So I just wanted to be like him.
But I mean mortal humans.
Right. Yeah. I was listening to a lot of, the Jimi Hendrixes and the Who's and the stuff that the people that Dad actually knew because they were around the house. John Entwistle was one of Dad's really good friends. So we knew him personally. He lived down the street from us at one point, and we stayed with him at his house in England at one point as well. And I have a really incredible memory of him. He came to me and said, I hear you're wanting to learn how to play bass. I was probably like 15 at the time. And I said, yeah. And he just walked me over to this closet, which was basically a hallway closet full of basses. And he said, pick any bass you want. It's yours for the weekend. And so I picked out, of all of the things that were there, I picked out this Fender Precision because it was my dream bass. And it was my bass for the weekend. And he brought me into his studio that he had at his house and showed me the studio and showed me, he had his buzzard bass, and he put the buzzard bass over my shoulders, and he's like, look, even the eyes light up. And I look back now, and I couldn't appreciate the gravity of who he was at the time, because back then it was just, he's one of my dad's kooky friends,
Right.
They were all just like raving lunatics. Just, fun was the priority. Fun and funny and all those things, just real characters. And so that's who he was to me at the time. But I look back now and I realize how monumental that was for me as a young kid, having that support, to be included and welcome to like the music club was really, really important for me, especially since my dad, interestingly enough, wasn't that into the idea of me playing music. It was never put on me, and I think that in the long run was a blessing, because Dad wasn't like, you're going to do what I do. He's like, you're not going to do what I do, kind of a thing. And that made me want to do it even more.
I was going to say that. Then the rebellion comes in, And,
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh, God damn it! If you say I can't, I'm going to.
Yeah, I'm so grateful now because I had to earn that shit. I had to work for it, and I worked my ass off. And I had to go above and beyond what Dad and his friends did in the 60s, which was, drop out of school at 15 and start touring the world. And you're a pop star overnight.
So how old were you when you dropped out?
That's the thing. I thought that was my path too. I was like, okay, I'm about 15 now, so it's about time I drop out of this school thing. But
right, where are the drugs? Where are the drugs?
Exactly. It was all sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Like, that was them. But I quickly realized that, okay, it's not the 60s anymore. I'm not my dad. I'm a different person. It's a different time. I have to carve my own path. So that's when I decided to go, not just drop out of school, but actually go to music school. So I shifted gears.
You had formal training.
I shifted gears and went into music school and did it a different way.
So what school did you go to?
I went to the LA County High School for the Arts, LOXA. I was an art kid. I went from an all-girl Catholic school kid to an art kid.
Oh, dear
Complete
God.
180.
Culture shock.
Yeah, but it was fantastic. I mean, I wouldn't be who I am now if it wasn't for that experience.
No doubt.
All of it. All those experiences, all those stepping stones, they make who you are as a person and as a player.
Of course.
And I wouldn't have had it any other way. The trials, the tribulations, all those things, all the hurdles that I jumped over, just make you who you are. And I'm so grateful for it. Yeah, of course, honing your craft, all that, like you said, it's a given. You have to be able to hack all that. But so much of it is the connections that you make, the people you meet, the rapport you have with those people, because you never know down the line who's going to come back into your life, who's going to need someone for a gig. And that's why it's so important to be the best you can be all the time, whether you're playing to two people, which I have, or 200 people and beyond. It's like you gotta put on your best gig because you're playing to 2 people, but one of them's the bartender. The bartender might be a booker at some other club. Like, you never know. And also, so much of that is like, how do you behave in a crisis? How do you react to situations because things don't always go your way. Shows a lot of the time don't go as smoothly as you would hope.
Well, and especially on a big tour.
Yeah. But I mean, even in those small shows, like, what happens if your amp goes out? What do you do? Like, do you freak out and start yelling at people? Like, how are you in those situations as well? And people want to work with people who keep their head on and are able to handle the day-to-day and the night-to-night and everything in between.
Being a woman in the industry, it seems to me that what you worked for was not to prove yourself as a woman in the industry, but just to prove yourself as a good musician.
I definitely didn't want to go out there wanting to be, I didn't want to be a female bass player. I wanted to be a bass player. It wasn't an issue of that for me. I just wanted to go and rock out, and it just so happened that the industry is mostly guys. So most of the bands I played in, except for my first band was all girls, interestingly enough. But after that point, I pretty much only played with guys for the most part because that's just what it was. That's who was around. When I got to high school, to music school, I was the only female in the rhythm section, and it was all mostly guys, and some of the teachers were from a different generation and would make comments, and looking back, they were very unsavory comments, and but it wasn't a thing where I never got angry about it. I just felt like that stuff didn't bother me because I wasn't there for that. I just wanted to play, and so there was definitely at times there was a struggle with, like, how do I fit in, right? How do I become one of the guys? So because of the comments that would happen sometimes, like, I was kind of aware about what I would wear to school. Like, I stopped wearing skirts to school, interestingly enough, because I didn't want to draw attention to myself. I just wanted to play. And so I had to work really hard at that. And it got to a point where it was okay because I proved myself as a player, right? It wasn't like, oh, she's good for a girl kind of a thing, which there's comments like that, of course, all the time.
Of course.
And loading into gigs, the sound guy would comment on what a good girlfriend I was because I was bringing in my boyfriend's gear for him. Like the comments don't end, and I still get them, like, to this day. But they're kind of like, some of them are like backhanded compliments, I guess. They don't really know, or maybe they do know, I don't know. But I've never felt I never had the energy to turn it into an argument or point my finger at them and tell them they should this, like, maybe there is a place for that. I'm not sure, but for me, I just wanted to play music, and I just had to learn how to navigate through those murky waters that weren't, so kosher some of the time. But I think, number one, you just have to prove yourself as a player, so they have to look past the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
But interestingly, there's also been times where there were times where I wouldn't get a gig because I was a female. And I remember being up for a gig, and they literally told me the only reason I didn't get the gig was because I was a girl. And the lead singer, who was a woman, didn't want the competition on stage. They said, you're way more qualified and you're a better player, but sorry. But on the flip side, there have been times where the artist wants another female on stage. So they're looking for a female. And sometimes it has been a benefit.
Pink's got a great balance of male and female.
Yeah,
on stage.
it's
I love what
mixed.
she does that way.
But she's not afraid to have another woman on stage.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important for us to empower each other and to lift each other up, and there's so much like competition and the idea that there's not enough to go around, which is really unfortunate. But I think that, or at least I hope that that's changing. It's definitely changed since I started playing. There's a lot more women out there, and with social media and the internet, there's more
and
exposure.
not just as players. I mean, even in the technical realm, in the studios and everything, and it's great to see. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely still gender equality. It's definitely...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a struggle for years.
It's definitely unbalanced.
But, you said something that I thought was really interesting just now, because you mentioned, like, being one of the guys, becoming one of the guys. There's an element of being able to become one of the guys without being one of the guys, I think that's what I'm referring to when I say gender agnosticism, Is that the right word? I don't even know if that's a word. But, the whole idea of that I don't want you to think of me as the girl in the band, I want you to think of me as the bass player.
Yeah, like nobody needs to be walking on eggshells because I'm a woman and I'm fragile or whatever it is, it's like, and so a lot of my time, like, getting into this world was like, how do I blend in? How do I become one of the guys? How I just another dude in the band? So it took me a long time of the ups and downs and the roller coaster of finally being able to embrace myself as a woman and express myself as a woman and start wearing skirts again and saying, like, this is who I am. I'm a woman and I just happen to play bass. It took a while to get there, but it was a road that I did travel on.
What would 15-year-old you think about you now? What would she be most impressed with and least impressed with?
15-year-old me would be so impressed that, like, wow, you got to jam with Courtney Love. Like, I think she would be... my dream was to, like, play in Hole when I was 15. That was, like, my ultimate dream. And I don't... least impressed with? I don't know. I think she'd be pretty darn impressed. And think that I was super cool and just... I have surpassed all of my dreams that I ever had.
Now that's a nice thing to be able to say.
Yeah. 15-year-old me just wanted to tour and just go on the road and just be in a band, in a touring band. And I did that. And I did that again and again. And just each time it got bigger and better and better and bigger. And the people that I've met and the performers I've gotten to support and the artists that I've gotten to support and be a part of their team, I mean, it's just been amazing. And yeah, I'm pretty darn, I think she'd be pretty darn proud of me.
And that's the thing too. I mean, you can talk about luck and timing and everything else, but you work for it.
Yeah, I did. I worked for it and it took a while. Mm-hmm. These things don't happen overnight. Like you were saying earlier, it takes a lot of persistence.
It does.
And a lot of willpower and a lot of guts and a lot of gumption, but it's been a dream at the same time.
I've had a conversation with a few people about why I think that so many bass players become producers. And I think there's a certain thing about playing bass that, first of all, you have to simplify, you have to leave space, and you have to understand where everybody else fits into the mix, because in a way you're the bridge between the rhythm element and the melodic element.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's part of, and maybe it is a bass player thing in particular, like you were saying, because like we have to be so aware of what's happening around us because like people are following us a lot of the time because we're rhythm and harmony at the same time, right? So it is like that glue that's kind of pulling everything together. And while somebody's soloing over there, we're just kind of laying it down and leaving a nice pad for them to do their thing on, Yeah, well, I mean, I've mostly been working on getting this single together that I decided to release.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just continuing to write. I'm really been focusing on honing in my chops, like my chops and programming and like with my DAW and just getting better at that and really using these tools that I have and just maximizing what I can do with them.
So you're becoming a producer now. See,
yeah,
you are a bass
something
player.
Like that, yeah, exactly. And just really expanding in that realm. And so I'm taking a couple of music production courses and getting into writing like composing for brands and commercial work kind of
cool.
stuff like that, which is really fun. It's just kind of a different way to think about it, and more composing to visuals, which has been really fun, and just trying some different stuff. Just trying, just expanding, and the word pivot is being thrown around a lot lately.
Isn't it though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But it's true.
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of what I've been doing all along anyway. I mean, just even with playing with artists, like I've had to expand my skill set there too, and adopt, getting really a lot more into like synth bass and catering to these artists and their needs, and saying, sure, I can do it, no problem. And then you figure it out, and in that way you're growing, right? And you're always growing. And I think that that's the most important thing to do is always just be growing and expanding and learning. And if we're not growing, why, it's like, why are we here?
Why are we here? Thank you.
The trick is how do you continue to stay motivated and inspired when, sometimes, especially right now, it's like, well, what are our goals now, right? Because normally we're rehearsing for something, or we're working towards something, towards a show or a goal or something like that. So the conversations I've had with a lot of my musician friends is how do I stay inspired right now? How do I stay motivated right now? Because normally the carrot at the end of the stick is the big show that's happening, or the gig on Friday night, or whatever it is that's going on. Yeah. So it's a particularly interesting time where we're being challenged and called upon ourselves to continue to stay motivated and inspired and figure out what drives us.
Yeah, you're not going to sit still either, clearly.
Absolutely not. I'm definitely not good at sitting still, and again, it's perspective. It's like seeing this as an opportunity.
Yeah. Eva Gardner, thank you for being my guest.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that.